Hi, everybody. Let's take a vote. Should we begin? Yes. Okay. So I'll ask the question I always ask. How many of you have been to a panel before that I've moderated? And yet you come back. Okay. All my panelists up here have been asking me all week, so what are we doing? What are we doing? Why aren't we rehearsing? Why aren't we doing a prep call? I think prep calls are like rehearsing for a sex scene in a movie. Takes all the spontaneity out of it. So what we're trying to have up here today is a conversation about social media, advertising, and brand integration. And you came here as opposed to other panels because you found something interesting about the panel in spite of me moderating. But so if you have a question, raise your hand and ask a question. Don't wait till the end. I'm not going to take questions at the end. I will, if we say something, if the word ARPU comes up and nobody knows what ARPU is, but I'm sure you do, you know, raise your hand. If we talk about DMAs, if we, whatever it happens to be, jump in, raise your hand, and we'll answer the question. The idea is we're sitting up here having lunch. You're all sitting at the next table. Lean in at any point and ask us a question. If we're not talking about what you thought the panel was about, because the panel descriptions are rather short, can you touch on, you raise your hand and say, could you please touch on such and such? Are we all good? Okay, interact. Razor, are we good? Okay. Kimberly, good? Becky, we're good? Okay, good. We're going to start. The only thing we're going to do a little bit different is Josh is going to explain what's going to be happening here. So Josh, why don't you introduce yourself, talk about what's happening here, and then we'll go to the regularly scheduled program.
Of course. Hi, how are you? I'm Josh Gottheimer from Microsoft. Hope everyone's having a good day. As part of the technology that I'm very involved in, I thought we were talking about it could be perfect for this room. It's a chance to actually rate us about what we're talking about and if you like it or don't like it. And if you get a chance to actually, as a second screen, real participatory activity during this panel, so make you actually pay a little more attention and tell us what you want us to hear. So if you actually go on any device, any phone, tablet, doesn't matter, cross-plat, and go to the site up there, as you see it, pulse.bing.com, WACDH, Digital Howard. You can jump on and start agreeing or disagreeing with what you're hearing. And with none of this is personally identifiable information, so we don't keep any of it. It's just all aggregated content.
Okay, give the moderator a benefit of the doubt when you're doing the ratings. Okay, thank you. Free t-shirts. So now we're going to start with the regularly scheduled program. So I'd like everybody to go down the panel and actually, Josh, you can sort of reintroduce yourself, what you do that keeps you busy, what you were doing before this, and what's the coolest piece of social media you've seen recently that you had nothing to do with?
Man, nothing to do with it. Okay, so I'm Josh Gottheimer.
Or an app that you really like, anything, something that you really think somebody did something very cool that you wish, boy, I wish I'd come up with that.
So Josh Gottheimer from Microsoft, as I just said a second ago, and I do strategy at Microsoft, and that includes part product development and incubating new ideas, and part broader strategy on direction of the company. And one of the products I spend a lot of time on is one that is in beta mode, and so I'm very eager for you to try it out, which is what you're looking at on the screen. And I came from a world mixed up, most recently at the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, before here, and spent a bunch of my life in politics. Started my career working for Bill Clinton. So the Clintons that's part two here of the Clinton world.
Cool.
I'm into this very new app. Now that you mentioned apps, now I got to look it up. I started using it this weekend, where you can get gift cards at a lower rate, or you can sell. Oh, Raise. Have you tried this? Raise. It's a very cool app. So you can get gift cards and sell gift cards and buy gift cards at a discount. And so I decided
RAISC.
RAISC.
Cool.
Yep. Very cool. That's very good. Okay, you're up.
All right. Hey, I'm Anthony Laser. I oversee content for Dailymotion in the U.S. That basically involves two very simple things, and that's content acquisition and then content development. So basically, we meet with content creators, be them huge companies like CBS or Condé Nast, or multi-channel networks like Maker Studio and Fullscreen, and we work out deals with them so they can reach new audience and find new revenue points for these pieces of content via our distribution platform, which started at around the same time as YouTube. 10 years ago, we just celebrated our 10th anniversary in Paris. It's a French-based company, but we've, in the last 3 years, really grown in the United States because everybody has decided that they need to have an off YouTube strategy, which is very, very important if you want to optimize the amount of revenue you're going to make on your content. Let's see, my favorite social media thing recently. Well, right before this, there was a guy from Funny or Die in here, and he kind of talked through the Dennis Quaid freak out. I'm not sure if any of you have seen this, but it was brilliant. It was kind of a parody of
Christian Bale.
Christian Bale and other celebrity freakouts on set, but it was very well disguised, and it became a new kind of a news story, and then revealed as a prank video. So I thought it was pretty genius. That's my favorite thing recently.
Cool.
Hello, my name is Chandra Hill. I am a faculty member at the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania. I run the Social TV Lab, where I bring together students and faculty that are interested in studying the relationship between television content and online behaviors, whether that be TV advertising or TV content in shows. I also recently joined Microsoft Research, so I'm sort of sitting both in industry and academia at the moment. I guess in terms of recent social media that I thought is exciting, so The Voice, I think, as a show, I don't know how many of you are familiar with The Voice, but it's a popular reality singing television show. They just consistently, I think, innovate in terms of integrating social into television, including playing games with audiences. And so I just love sort of watching year after year how they engage with audiences. And since you brought up apps, another thing that I think is really cool, I see apps more and more using research to sort of try to get new customers. So for example, there's this app called Minibar where you can order alcoholic beverages and get them delivered to your house within an hour. Similarly,
Start that
What's that app again?
Minibar.
It's called Minibar?
Yeah, Minibar. And then there's this other
Okay.
app called Glam Squad that I
Right,
used
that one.
recently that, so hairdressers and nail technicians will come to your house. But what's fascinating about both of them is that they are using research that people and information systems have come up with that have shown that if you ask people to recommend something and tell them that your friend is going to get some value, for example, in the case of Glam Squad, if you recommend their service to a friend, your friend gets $20 and you get $20. So they're taking advantage of research that has found that if you give the incentive such that both the person who sends the message and the person who receives it gets some financial reward, that's sort of the best strategy for spreading your app or product. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Liz, you're up.
All right. Hi, I'm Liz Teschler. I'm the marketing director for Smosh Brands at Defy Media. Defy Media, we're a top content creator, a top digital content creator, and Smosh is definitely a big part of that. Smosh, if you haven't heard of them, we're currently the 4th largest channel on YouTube. We've been on YouTube since 2005, so we're celebrating 10 years now. A lot has changed over the past 10 years. Currently, we have 5 channels that I oversee. Across those 5 channels, we have 32 million subscribers, and we do about 90 million video views a month, about 5 million views a day. Let's see, what have I seen recently?
No, but talk about the target, because it was interesting. We did have a short conversation. There's something to be said for actually meeting the people before the panel.
I made him.
Yeah. So you were talking about the target that you're hitting right now, because I said Funny or Die or whatever, and you said it was interesting who you're hitting.
Well, I think Smosh has been successful in creating a comedy niche on internet comedy. We really target a 13 to 17-year-old consumer. We really have
Locker
that
room
niche
humor.
on that 17-year-old boy, where Smosh, the brand of comedy, really fits right squarely in between. I'm too old for Nickelodeon. I might not be old enough for Comedy Central. Come online, come get Smosh. We give you a new video every Friday.
And I just got my official first phone call of the panel. I turned it off. Sorry.
I think something cool that I've seen recently over the past few days, we saw Ryan Higa, who's a fellow YouTube content creator, launch his app on the Victorious platform. I don't work with them. I'm not paid by them, but I think it was really cool, the app that they've put up. and excited to see other types of apps that they create for an always on content strategy with their audience.
Cool. I'm Ted Cohen. I run a company called Tag Strategic. We advise startups on dealing with the entertainment industry. We advise the entertainment industry on how to deal with the fact that they're getting disintermediated on a daily basis. So helping people with licensing deals, things like that, general strategic advice. Just came back from Miami where one of my clients refers to me affectionately as their insultant. Because most of my sentences begin with, "Are you kidding me? You're doing what? You're doing it? You didn't even say, what do you think? It's announcing." Anyway, it's a lot of fun. So I've been speaking at sessions for Victor since, I hate to say, but 1993. So this has been, watching Digital Hollywood grow is great. It started out as Multimedia Expo, and Victor puts on a great event every, 3 or 4 times a year in various cities. So it's great to be here. I have been working on digital media since literally 82. We started a group at Warner Records between Warner and Atari, working with a guy named Alan Kay, who left Xerox PARC because he was upset that Jobs and Wozniak borrowed his idea for the Lisa, and have been working on the internal struggle between rights holders and the eventual disruption of the current, whatever the current model is. The coolest 2 things I've seen lately, they're both social, like video apps. One is called Samba, which is out of Israel, which was the top app last year at South by Southwest, but continues to grow. And the one that was really interesting is, how many of you remember Airtime? Who knows what Airtime was? Okay, there's 3 hands have gone up. Airtime was the bombastic launch by Sean Fanning and Sean Parker with Jimmy Fallon and everybody, this huge launch, and it disappeared. It's quietly reemerged as OK Hello. Let me see if that's correct. Yes, it's called OK Hello. It's a very cool place where you can set up a video chat room. Again, it's very social. And it's sort of been around now for the past year, and nobody knows it exists. It was after the bombastic launch of Airtime, they rebranded it as OK Hello. And now they're going to actually let it grow and get an audience without huge press releases. So the purpose of the panel is to talk about how social media, brand integration, advertising, all kind of work together. And the kickoff question that I kind of had for everybody is, how do you find that delicate balance between starting an authentic conversation with your customers versus something that feels more like an infomercial as opposed to advertorial or social media to get those kind of discussions going? So Andrew, you happen to nod, so I'm going to call on you.
Oh, me?
Yes, you're up.
My name's Anthony.
Anthony.
Yeah, no
You
worries.
answered Andrew as well, right?
Well, that's my father's name, actually.
Okay.
So I'll answer. Yeah.
Okay.
Either way. So one of the things that we see right now, when we're developing content with brands, custom content with brands, is that the content itself is just one very small part of an overarching sort of campaign that they want to create. They want to have an engaged audience. They want to see that their analytics around completion rates with videos. They want to see how the conversation's going to develop around the content. Comments, how it's going to surface on social media. So all these different pieces are part of an overall interaction that we have with the brand and how we connect them with creators on our platform. So it's not just about creating custom content. It's about the environment around it as well. And
so give an example if you want to name one that went well, and you don't have to name by name the one that didn't go well. You can be vague about it. A major soft drink in Atlanta. I mean, really vague.
I can actually name one that's kind of a funny story that last year we were doing an activation with Plan B, which is the morning after pill, if you're not aware. So Plan B wanted to reach women 18 to 25 who were not interested in getting pregnant. And so we needed to create custom content. They were interested in finding what kind of content can reach a woman who's not trying to get pregnant in that age group. And that's a very difficult question. I'm not, there's not a lot of stats out there to, at least that we came across, to indicate one way or another, this is the type of content. But in the end, we worked it out with them where they wanted to be around music content. So we find a content creator on our platform. We say, what would be your budget to develop content that would, with different musicians that would be interesting to this sort of female demo. They give us a budget, kind of a layout of what that custom content looked like. We brought that to Plan B. Plan B gave a few notes, and then that was that. Then they provided a production budget. We created rich media around that, which if you're not familiar with, it's on-site, on-site banners and in-stream advertising that was around Plan B. But there was no actual Plan B integration or native advertising. The bands weren't throwing out morning after pills to the audience after each performance. It was, it was more that they just wanted to live around the
Josh, is this
content.
time for some kind of a survey right here? How do we bring Pulse into this?
But that's a basic idea of how one of these branded content integrations can work. And so.
But what were the results?
Yeah, what were the results?
What were the results? I think that the result, the only result that mattered is that the brand was happy with us and continued to come to us for additional business.
That's the only thing that matters?
Was there an uplift in the
That
sales?
happy women
Yeah.
didn't matter?
But
What was the question?
what was the question?
I thought it was about preventing pregnancy
Right.
and for irresponsible women.
Okay. How many?
No. I think, no.
Let's hear from.
That-
How many
that-
irresponsible women are there in the audience? Where's Bruce Jenner? Okay.
I had no idea this would get political. this
I had no
quickly.
idea either.
Yeah.
So interesting. So were there any metrics that seriously that you can share? What was the reaction to the audience, the target audience? Did they?
Yeah, I mean, it was a predominantly female. We when you start tracking that, it was a predominantly female audience that interacted with it, because one of the reasons we were able to find talent that worked is
Who was the
because
talent?
it was talent that had a predominantly female social media following.
Okay.
And so when you use things like Facebook following, Twitter following,
Right.
Instagram following, you can tell there's various different metrics platforms can tell you what the predominant gender of that audience is. And that led to the majority of the viewers being female, because
Okay.
the content was targeted towards female artists.
When you look at something like this, what's your reaction to?
My reaction.
Yes, your
Okay,
reaction.
So,
As somebody that
let
does
me just take.
research and looking
Yeah.
at metrics and.
So right. So let me take. So I basically study how people respond to different advertising campaigns, and I think even a little bit more than that. So we try to make sure we're being clear about the impact of certain campaigns, for example, on outcomes by being very careful about the types of analysis that we do. And so the first thing I would say, and I'm sure that you guys sort of did all of your homework and sort of maybe even ran an experiment to see sort of which messages worked in the past and didn't. But if you didn't, I guess in general, what I would recommend is, to the extent possible, either sort of pulling from stuff that people have already done in the literature. For example, I have colleagues at Wharton that have studied extensively the messages that brands have put on Facebook when they're trying to generate likes, for example. And they've coded these messages from different brands by their emotional content, where they, providing a discount, was it funny, and then look to see sort of which of these messages were more likely to generate likes. And in that particular study where they studied Facebook only, I think they found this more natural content that was funny tended to sort of generate more engagement from the user. So that's one thing, that there actually is research that is ongoing, that people are trying to sort of tease out what features of messages are actually useful. The second thing I would say is, I've done some studies looking at Super Bowl advertising where we've looked at response on social media in real time to advertising campaigns during major events, including the Super Bowl. And what we found there was that advertisers that we're not including social content, or even more specifically playing a game with the users, and that can mean different things, like asking people in advance to submit photos or videos to maybe get selected. We found that people that were, or advertisers that were just advertising without social content at all, were basically sort of in the situation where their social response was an out of sight, out of mind situation. So immediately after the advertisement was shown, you see this peak and buzz, and then it immediately dies off. For advertisers that didn't include social content or game. On the other hand, for advertisers that were engaging with the audience for a longer duration, so purposely so, like by having a game, their buzz continued well after the Super Bowl. And so I think, those types of lessons can be learned by looking across advertisers and then sort of using methods that sort of help tease out causal relationships. Now, all that said, looking at just the response is not enough. And so what I would encourage those of you that are advertisers to do is to actually try to do some experimentation so that you can actually figure out what about the messages, if you can isolate sort of telling a different story to one randomly selected group of people and something else to another, tease out what the message features are that are causing the impact on outcomes. So experimentation is really important. It's something that is often overlooked by companies.
Well, if you look back over the last 5 years, I mean, I don't know if that's a segment that you can analyze up here, but are consumers more willing to interact with brands, less willing? Do they feel they're being played? I mean, I'll do my normal anecdote. I don't know if anyone's here from San Francisco. Any San? Okay. So there's a festival called Outside Lands that happens in the park every year. They've started referring to it as Outside Brands because, how was the festival? Oh, the Toyota pavilion was nice, but the Samsung pavilion wasn't as good as last year. What about the bands? Oh yeah, there were bands there too. So some people seem to be very intent on engaging with brands. Other people, do they feel they're being played?
So I guess
That's
the answer
question.
to that, I guess the answer is it depends.
Let's start with the first question. Are people more leaning toward being willing to interact with the brand and making whatever that deal with the devil is?
So this is not coming from any research, but just kind of observing kind of consumers, even myself. So I think people are more and more becoming accustomed to the idea that brands are tracking them or companies are tracking them. And also that's sort of part of this deal that they're making with services like Google or Bing or any platform that's advertising to you online. So I realize as a consumer, I'm giving something up, my data, for example, and to get this service, and in response, okay, you advertise to me. And so I think consumers sort of know this. We sort of make this deal if we interact with these different services or use them. Now, all that said, we are sort of knowingly sort of going into this deal, but sometimes if things become sort of normal, we begin to ignore them, right? So ads, for example, right? And so then it, becomes more important for advertisers to innovate in terms of, sort of how they're actually communicating with consumers to get their attention, if that makes sense.
Okay. But I mean, do people feel the deal that they make to give up data to be tracked to all of a sudden, to have your likes and dislikes followed? Is there more pushback now about that or less pushback? I mean, the things that have happened in the last couple of years in terms of privacy issues. Does privacy matter? And let's segment it to, maybe Liz, you can take a shot at this. The people you're above COPA, right? So,
Sure.
I mean, you're 13 and above. So you're not dealing with COPA issues, which is marketing to preteens. Is that correct?
Yes.
So, but is your audience willing to opt in return for being rewarded?
I don't think they're thinking about it that much. I don't think they care about opting in. I don't think they care about who's watching us or where I am, what location-based services. I know when I started using Foursquare, when that was still a thing, my parents would be like, "Oh, aren't you worried people will find you and know where you are?" No, no one ever showed up to kidnap me. And I don't think our younger audiences are thinking about that as well. I think their premium is on the engagement and the acknowledgement that they're getting back from the brand or the content creator. And I think as we see brands fulfill the roles of content creators, these rules for audience development are some and the same that we see for creating a successful YouTube channel or a blog. Engagement is just paramount to creating an audience. When we see that acknowledgement, our audience, they just want to know that you hear them, that you follow them, that they actually tweeted to you and you favorited it. It's a really big deal for them.
Right.
And I mean, in some cases, we're able to do sweepstakes where I don't have to have a budget for a prize because the prize is that we followed you on Twitter or we liked your Instagram post, and people are over the moon excited. I have far more people entering those types of promotions than I do for giving away a TV.
Really? So
I'll preface that with it's
so
teen. So I don't know if my dad would be as excited about getting followed on Facebook as a television, but my youth audience is.
So when you're looking at brand integration, I mean, what are some of the brand integrations you've done that you're proud of at Smosh? Anything you want to?
I mean, we've
Do a shout out for somebody.
done a lot of integrations. I think our integrations with gaming studios have been the most successful because they've been authentic down to the core of our brand attributes. Something that we've been successful with in our content is gaming parodies, and taking, just because you're a gamer doesn't mean a gaming YouTube is you watching somebody play a video game. You know, we've done music videos or sketches, and we did an integration for Assassin's Creed 3. We've done Assassin's Creed 4 as well. But our Assassin's Creed 3 video, it was just something the brand gave us a lot of license. So we're able to create content that we loved and that we put it up. Our audience, the comments on it were like, "Man, you guys should have got paid for this video." Or, "Hey, wasn't it really cool that I saw the trailer for this video game right before your guys' video about that? What a coincidence." It was so authentic to the content that we normally create that our audience just loved it. Right now, that video over 2 years has over 60 million views. It's a really successful song that we sell as well, of a merchandise line associated with it. And so that is a brand where we've been able to go back and create repeat touch points where we're integrating the brand's messaging and their content into something that feels wholly authentic for us.
Very cool. So Josh, going back to your history, I think it's a good one. We're currently advertising for a new president in 2016. And the biggest announcement of one of the candidates from the Democrats, I can't remember her name right now, but she was announcing through social media that she was running again, Hillary Clinton. There was a lot of study done on how she used social media the first time versus how she's using social media now. Can you touch on, there was a question of when she was introduced into the announcement spot, those kind of things. What goes into some of that? I mean, you've been on that side of it.
Yes, I think it was I thought it was a very smart launch. I think it was a modern launch. Then the architects of it, I mean, Teddy Goff's a friend of mine who worked for President Obama on his campaign. I think was one of the architects behind this strategy for Secretary Clinton. I think what the secretary is trying to do what Hillary's trying to do in her campaign, and I think the launch helped do that, is say, listen, we're living in a new time. People communicate in a much different way, and instead of just speaking one way, it's like they were trying to do as much as possible, as quickly as possible, grab people who would share it with their friends and have an authentic conversation with their friends about the launch. And I think the way from when I started doing presidential campaigns in '96 to compared to the campaigns now, the biggest transition to me is how you engage people to campaign on your behalf in a way that has never happened. Instead of door knocking or phone calls or sending a postcard, people, when they like a candidate, go out and share the information about the candidate with their friends. They use Facebook, they use Twitter, they use all different forms of down to email and all different forms of social media to almost launch their own mini campaign to recruit their friends. And as you know, as we were talking about before, the most authentic persuasion campaigns are ones from friends, not where you're just watching a commercial on TV or getting a one-way email at you or even an ad. It's when you actually send a note to your friends online and say, listen, here's what, did you read this article? Did you see what Hillary did today? Did you see the speech she gave today, that she's in the Scooby van driving across country, right? I mean, those moments make you feel personally invested and connected in a way that just having a one-way conversation never does. I mean, it's on our thing we're developing that's on the screen there. It's the same sort of idea. It came out of the same idea of when you have people second screening and engaging with social media and wanting to have their opinions heard online, whether they're blogging or tweeting or posting something on Facebook. What we realize is that everybody has an opinion and they want their opinion to be heard. They just don't want one-way conversations. They want to engage, to have a real two-way engagement. And the more they can have their voice heard, the better your product will do. And I just think that's sort of the name of the game we're living in right now. If you've got to find a way for people to have an individual voice, and I think that goes to the presidential campaigns, and that's what I think Hillary and her campaign is trying to tap into.
I couldn't agree with Josh more. I think one thing that we really need to recognize, because I think a few years ago there were a lot of people who felt like digital content, video, is just a short form television or low grade television. But what I think people are finally really starting to realize is it's its own art form, it's its own medium, and it's not passive like film or television where people sit back and just watch. It's a part of a conversation. The content itself is just a piece of that conversation that's and that people are interacting in and becoming part of communities. And then that community starts to generate more content. The people who are sitting there and just commenting at one point then start making their own videos, and then they create their own communities. So it's a much more active sort of medium than some of the traditional media.
Exactly. Just think about how when I grew up, or my parents grew up watching Walter Cronkite, and they talked about it, right? They just sit in their living room, there's a few stations, and there's one-way information coming at them. Now you sit that no one just sits and watches. Even if you watch the news on TV, you don't just sit there and watch the news. You're wanting to share bits and pieces of it. You want to take clips of it and send it out. You do your own research. That's right. You'll immediately do a search to look deeper into something they're talking about if you're interested. It's a much more engaging. It's a very exciting time that way because you really get to dig a lot deeper than you ever have. But then again, I think managing all of that noise and all that conversation is difficult, right? I mean, in some ways, we many more communities than ever before, these micro communities, versus having, okay, you watched Cronkite or you watched
Brinkley.
Yep.
You're going back.
Wow.
I don't remember that.
So let me ask you this: what percent? I mean, you may know the number. Somebody may know the number. They may not. What percentage? And I'm not trying to turn this into a political debate. What percentage of the electorate is passionate, not passive, passionate, active, versus the idea of, I'm going into the voting booth, I'm voting for who I want to vote for, but I'm not necessarily telling everybody who I voted for. I mean, I have friends who during the 2012 election, I didn't unfriend them, but they sort of went into purgatory till the election was over because I was tired of.
Well, I think I don't think there's a single answer to that. I know there's not a single answer to that. It's very candidate driven, cycle driven. Some elections and some candidates have great emote and cause you to really want to get involved, and others you've just had enough and want to shut it down because you can't stand listening to it anymore.
Right.
And we all know that saturation point is brutal, and you just can't watch another ad. So
it's not so much the ads, but some of the dialogue. I mean, people who say, I have a friend who I turn him off in terms of having him in my feed because it's just relentless when he's on a tear. That two-way, I don't want that two-way right now.
You don't want you don't want all the incoming.
I'll take some of it. I'll go to his page to see, okay, what did he do? But I don't really need it as something that's coming at me like an automatic, an AK-47.
Yeah, well, some people are right, and some people get very passionate. If you think about 2008 as a benchmark, and you look at just sort of how that was in terms of a real modern campaign using all these channels, and it was a time where lots of people got fired up, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, those really, and then people got frustrated, and sort of you see these cycles, and then people say, I can't listen to this anymore. I'm frustrated. I'm hoping that this will be. I think this election could turn out to be, a point of great excitement. We'll see where people's heads are, and who it turns out to be.
Okay. So how are you using, we've got Pulse up here. How are you using Pulse currently?
So we're using Pulse on, we are on MSNBC several times a day. So they actually are using it. What happens, they'll have a debate about a topic and they'll throw it up and they want to hear from the viewers. So in that case, you're asking about what's authentic. For us, and we're also we also have a relationship with CNN, and they're using it several times. They're going to be using it for the presidential debates. They use it for State of the Union address. MSNBC does too. And then we just did a deal on the sports side. For us, it's all about making it an authentic relationship, because these TV stations, these media partners have no interest if it's actually not working with their viewers, right? It's not a sponsorship. It's an engineering partnership. It's a very different relationship. If it works and it gets people to stay on their channel longer and lets their viewers actually have a voice, great. If they find out that this is not working, we have daily conversations with them about reacting. Why are people not engaging here? Why are they not reacting here? What are they reacting about?
But does it make the conversation then more authentic or less authentic? If you remember Virtuosity, the Denzel Washington, Russell Crowe movie, where they basically were tailoring the conversation to what the reaction of the audience was. So the conversation was going in a certain direction, then the audience reacted badly, so the conversation went in a different direction. Well, no, does it make it more authentic, or does it try and basically appeal to the?
Well, it depends. Well, that's a chicken and egg game. I mean, it depends if you believe you should be listening to your viewers or not. I mean, in some cases, I think it's authentic in the sense of they're seeing what their viewers are very interested in hearing about. It may be that there's certain topics that they see their viewers really react to, and then they decide we want to do more on that because clearly our viewers care about this. And so in that way, they react to it. I think you're right that if they're immediately changing what they were saying, you'd have a problem. But we're not seeing they're changing what they're saying. We see that they find it very interesting to know what their viewers find interesting, or what really gets them going and ginned up, especially on a channel like MSNBC, right, where you have people with certain political persuasions. We had a relationship with Fox. They have very different political views, right, but same sort of
they're
thing.
The most truthful.
I'll leave that to you.
Is the goal of the product to inform programming or just provide a greater outlet for engagement for the audience?
Engagement. But at the same time, they can see where viewers feel about certain things, right? But then viewers beget other viewers, right? Because then they see people say, well, I don't agree with that. And then they jump in. And so you want to get everyone to jump in, sort of, instead of screaming at the television, right? Or getting angry, like it's your chance to give your feedback.
Spence, you have a question? Okay. Teasing a friend. Yes, sir.
How is Facebook's new video platform disrupting what your current moment is in terms of their video platform?
Well, for me, I'm seeing Facebook as one piece of a multifaceted distribution, which people are starting to realize more and more that rather than expecting the user to come to them, they need to be going out and being where the users are. I often use a metaphor of if you're going hiking, say you go out for a hike on a Saturday, you're often meandering. You maybe don't go to an end point and that's how most people go online and spend their time. They don't have a destination when they're surfing around. They're just meandering along a path. And if you can have your content in various places, there's better chance during that hike that people will come across your content, as opposed to having this one destination point and they specifically need to get there. So I think content creators, I think it's great that Facebook is becoming more of a video platform. It gives them one more tool to connect with people. So.
Okay, sorry. Somebody just actually emailed me about Pulse. Sorry about that.
I could share a little bit
I'm so
about
sorry.
Facebook video.
I really looked down and I went, oh, okay.
I think it's really interesting. If you have a Facebook content strategy, it's a necessity. You just can't be ignoring it flat out. I think as a content creator, primarily a YouTube content creator, it's really interesting. I mean, I would say to anyone who hears about the number of views you're seeing on Facebook, just take that with a heavy grain of salt. Their threshold for a view is much, 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 much smaller than a company like YouTube considers. right now, also as a content creator, they're not monetizing my content for me, or they're monetizing it. We're just not seeing any of that. And there's also not a lot of great tools in place to protect your content on Facebook yet. So I mean, I think those are just things to be really aware of and to look forward to. Outside of that, I think there's a place for Facebook video amongst our content strategy. Maybe we won't upload the whole episode there, but we're definitely going to put a teaser clip to try to get you over to our app or over to YouTube to watch the full video.
Absolutely. I mean, I went and visited a movie studio last year and was just informationally to find out what tools they were using. And I said, so you have a major movie. I won't say the studio. I'm being seriously. Normally I go, I won't tell you studio, but they're over on, but I won't do that. I said, so beyond Facebook and Twitter, what are you using? And they said, well, Facebook and Twitter. And I said, yeah, but I mean, I know you're using Facebook and Twitter. What else are you using? And they went, well, Facebook and Twitter. I said, but there's so many other things out there. And they said, we just got our bosses to the point that they understand the number of Facebook likes and the number of tweets. We can't, it's going to be a leap to get them to explain what Tumblr is, to explain what, you know, I named 5 other things. They, nope, we're not using that. Nope, we're not using that, because they can't quantify it. But the question is, out of another conversation, somebody said, our band has 14 million likes. And I went, yeah, but what does that mean? And they said, well, I thought you know what that means. I said, yeah, without some engagement, it means nothing. That was a rhetorical question. So when we have likes and we have follows and we have retweets, how are you capitalizing when you're doing, when tying social media into your programming? What are you doing to prolong the conversation? And what are some tips maybe you can give the folks? Share some of your secrets. Anthony or Liz, whoever wants to jump in.
Let's see, social media secrets. I don't know. I mean, I think, you know, there's not a lot of secrets. It's being authentic, being catering to our audience is really important. We're always on. There's many places to get our content. I think one of the success.
Here's a tough one. I'm going to interrupt you. You're talking to 13 to 17-year-old boys. Who's sitting in your office that knows that what you're saying resonates with, other than you're getting feedback? Do you have a 13-year-old boy sitting in the office? Somebody's son.
I don't know if you would be surprised. We have a lot of 30-year-old men whose minds kind of go.
That was good. That was very good.
Yeah, no, we're a lot of really smart people who watch a lot of Disney Channel and read a lot of, just talk a lot about dick jokes and stupid stuff.
I had told her earlier when we were talking for a couple of minutes, I said, I hosted a panel at a millennials conference about 6 years ago. And we had a bunch of, at the time, millennials sitting up there. And I said, how much time on average do you spend on Second Life? And they all looked at me and went, what's Second Life? And I realized they had a great first life. They didn't need Second Life. So there's sometimes, I don't know if, that's what I was wondering, how you stay
there's
in touch.
definitely, I mean, there's a lot of us who
Immature
we
bosses,
consider digital natives, but even for myself, Snapchat was the first platform I picked up and was like, oh, I don't really get it. I had to spend some time, do some homework, go talk to some younger people and figure it out. I mean, I didn't have that experience for me for Facebook or Twitter, but there's aging up, there's pluses and minuses. So, you know, we also bring some smart people in. I mean, I listen to our audience. I talk to them one-on-one. I'm like, why do you want us to be on Snapchat? They're like, oh, we really want you guys to be on Snapchat. I'm like, well, tell me why.
Why?
I mean, because they basically want like 24/7 us content. They really, with our talent, they feel like their connection is so deep. Having them on Snapchat, being able to see literally what they ate for lunch, them brushing their teeth, them playing with their cats. It's ridiculous, but it's really this connection where when you're 13 and you live in Kansas and you don't really feel like you fit in, you don't really get along with your parents or your brothers, but you're at home and you have your one screen that's your private screen. You don't have to fight over it. You don't have to share it with anyone. I have this one-on-one connection with the talent, and it feels really special, and it's just really stronger than a relationship this teen is going to have to Justin Bieber or to an athletic star. It just the same with a digital content creator. We can really create this really tight experience.
Very cool.
So-
Anthony, thoughts on that? Oh, no, I'm sorry. No,
Yeah.
go ahead. No, you're right.
Yeah. So I guess I just want to add that, you know, there are opportunities now for actually measuring the impact of whether it be social campaigns or or any other strategy that you have. So I think it's really important to kind of think ahead about, how can I measure things that I care about? For example, for a lot of people, it's sales, right? So if you care about sales, then you should think about, well, how can I link whatever I'm doing to sales? So I might be able to manipulate whatever I'm doing by location. So then I can measure sales by location. Similarly, for a lot of you in the audience, it could be viewership. And so you can look at the impact of social on viewership. So I think, this question about, what's the value in social, at least I get asked this all the time. And I would say prior to 2 years ago, it was really hard to sort of cleanly link different social strategies to outcomes. But as firms generate more and more data, and by firms, I mean even Microsoft having clicks on websites, or firms being able to better track their sales both in stores and online, there are more and more opportunities to link data across sources. It might mean that you have to buy that data, from a third party. It might mean that you have to think smart about how you can collect that up front before you take on a particular campaign. But I encourage you to do that. Oftentimes I speak to advertisers, no offense, but that are very fuzzy, yeah, we survey people and we ask them about recall. And I understand that those are pretty standard traditional measures of TV advertising effectiveness, for example. But now with digital behaviors being so ubiquitous and easy to measure, I think there's so many opportunities to do a better job at measurement.
Okay. It's very funny. I was just going to call on you. What do you have to say? And then I have a question for you as an early pioneer. Introduce yourself.
Steve Bradbury, I'm the CEO of the Blue Media Group. Actually, I'm glad you said what you just said, because that's the first time I've actually heard anybody from less than a while connect what we're talking about to the beginning to revenue. At the end of the day, it's nice to have all this great social media, and I want engagement, and I want likes, and I want followers, and all that. The question I ask is, how do you ultimately turn it into revenue? Because if I have to staff a team of social media people who are going to be responding to every post I put on YouTube and every tweet that goes out and all that, there's got to be some ROI that actually shows where the revenue needle moves. So that's the challenge, I think, that a lot of people in this room probably face.
So go back a couple iterations in your career and talk about GoTV for a minute. What did you learn that has influenced you going forward? Because, I mean, you were an early pioneer in creating, web content that didn't exist anywhere else.
Well, GoTV, for those that don't know, is a mobile video company that was around 2005. We were one of the first companies to do streaming video back when it started at streaming text and audio. And then it was 3G, and it was like a 10 frames per second experience. What we learned was that we were too far ahead.
Yeah.
We took $30 or $40 million of venture money in, and we were too far ahead of the game. People were not ready to watch video on a device that looked like this. And so to try to get people to embrace what we were doing was a lost cause, because the experience was not there.
Because of the technology, or they weren't ready emotionally or psychologically? Because of was it the quality of the video and the quality of the audio at 3G, or was it just that they weren't ready for it in the mindset, or both?
Well, it's both. It starts with the experience. If you have a 30 or 40 inch screen at the time sitting at home, and you have a small device that's giving you 10 frames per second instead of 30 frames per second, which is what video standard runs at, it's a pretty crappy experience. You're watching the stop and start. It's not a video experience. So that was.
So it wasn't embraced by the porn industry. Okay.
And that's it.
Okay. So because you were in it. When we first met, you were doing this before anybody else I know was doing it.
Yeah, it was. Listen, anytime you introduce something new, it's tough to get people to buy. The early adopters always lead and then get the masses.
Mm-hmm.
That's where now we sit with social media, and it exists today. It's all over the place. All these platforms are over the place. But I still come back to, I don't say don't do it, but I say, how do we make money from doing it?
Exactly.
Contributing to the bottom line that's moving the business forward. And that's still a question that I think is outstanding. I'm curious to hear what anybody has to say.
We have a question. We did have a question up there, and if anybody saw it, if you want to respond to the little survey that was up there, it looked like a good one. And if we can go back to it. And how do they get to that again? It's bing.pulse.com.
Pulse.bing.com whack.dh.
Okay. Question right here. Yes, ma'am.
Can I build
On Steve's comment? Yes.
Marketing return on investment on
Yes,
marketing,
absolutely.
revenues? Is anybody doing anything, or have you seen anything really innovative in loyalty programs and extending the loyalty engagement to consumers? And I'm not talking CRM, I'm really talking about marketing and consumer marketing and loyalty.
Anybody?
Well, there's actually a company in Venice right now called Omaze. I'm not sure if you've heard of them. Omaze is a really interesting company in that they work with charities and they crowdsource funding for those charities. But one of the big ways they do that is through creating content, and it's not just like I was talking about before, a passive piece of content where you sit back and watch it and that's nice, and then that's what you want to, then they ask you to give them money.
For 25 cents a day, you can help Hector.
Exactly. It's not that kind of an older model. Instead, what they do is they have influencers or celebrities, people of interest, and then you're able to, by giving to the charity, you're able to enter into different contests where you can, interact with that celebrity, go out to dinner with them, drive around in a car with them, whatever. And the celebrity gives their time to help that charity out in that way. And so it takes crowdsourcing. It takes the ways that digital content creation works around creating a conversation and getting people to engage with their own content creation. So there's it has a lot of different facets to the way that platform and that organization works, but it's working well. And it actually, I think I saw them, there's what is the Night of Too Many Stars?
Right.
I think that Comedy Central does. They powered that as they were the platform that people could donate to that. And so that was, it's a positive outcome too. So it's a kind of an interesting way to market to people, but also get them feeling good about themselves.
Cool. You got a comment? And then I'll go back there.
Basically, we're all talking about ads, getting them to the consumers, for the brands, getting them to consumers. I'm working on augmented reality, and we're able to get the consumers to go into the brand's location. Can you kind of help me figure out or talk to the value of that compared to regular marketing? Anybody?
Do you want to? Well, I don't know how familiar you are with your division, but I'm really impressed with HoloLens.
With HoloLens, yeah. Uh-huh.
Why don't you touch on that? Because I saw that last week for the first time and went.
The HoloLens is a great example. What we're doing, we're working with like Dave & Buster's and places like that. We've got games that are doing quests that the person will show up at Dave & Buster's. Just happens to be about lunchtime or dinner time or something like that to jump to the quest. So but we can't quantify the value difference from that to regular advertising. I just want to throw that out. If anybody's got some way to focus me on that. HoloLens is perfect.
HoloLens is terrific. I don't have any data on that. I mean, it's not my area in the company. I mean, although the HoloLens.
Who is familiar with HoloLens? A couple people. Okay. What can you do like 30 seconds on it? Because it really is innovative. If I know it's not your division.
Sure. No. I'll do the poor man's version of it. You may actually. Are you using it? Have you tried it? HoloLens. Have you gone to a demo yet of it?
I've seen the demos of it. I'm created the first U.S. manufactured virtual reality arcade system back in the 90s, so this stuff's not new.
You want to talk about what it does? You're probably better than me.
Well, the HoloLens is basically the best way to talk about it is like a fighter pilot's heads-up display. It just overlays the computer graphics on the world around you. The cool parts about it is it understands how far away the wall is, where the door is, and what your fingers are doing. So if everybody's seen things like Iron Man, Tony Stark's interface of pulling things around that aren't there, well, that's what it can do.
Right, and you're not completely set into it, right?
No, you can see.
Well, you feel as dumb as a glass hole.
Exactly. It's incredible. You can move things aside, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
you can take anything, something that's not there, like a television screen. I can I can take it, expand it, put it on that wall, turn my head, and it's attached to that wall.
Yeah, it's,
Only in the glasses, only in the HoloLens.
right.
Yeah, that's the kind
It's
of-
incredible. It's mind blowing.
It is. It
Yeah,
really is.
I've used it's yeah.
My question is, traditional advertising goes from the brand to the consumer. With HoloLens, we can take the consumer and bring them into
To the brand.
location.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a great point. I mean, you might know more on the Wharton side.
Sounds like a
Yeah, I
panel.
mean,
It sounds
yeah,
like a
I
panel
mean-
for the next
That sounds like a
digital
Wharton
I mean, I
conversation.
guess the point that, sort of I keep echoing is like run an experiment, right? To the extent, I mean, and this isn't trivial because like when you're bringing in other technology, it's like you're going to have all these things that people are going to experience in addition to the advertisement. But like to the extent that you can have a panel of people or a set of potential consumers, show them one type of advertising, randomly assign them to groups, show one group one type of advertising, another one, sort of bring into this environment, and then later on either ask them questions or measure how much money they spent on the brand. I mean, that's kind of the right way to do it, right? And that's kind of with anything that you're trying to measure. It's usually not trivial to set up these experiments where the only thing that you're changing is the thing that you care about. But that's kind of the right way to think about it, right?
Okay. Your question back there. You. Yeah. Hi.
I had a question for the panel. So, social media strategy and advertising, is it the end goal? I mean, if the end goal is to prize open a consumer's wallet, which it is social media, can it be an end in itself, or is it just a stepping stone to the next thing which will help the wallet get prized open? If so, what is the next thing? Email address, what's the next step down the funnel?
What's that? Your PIN number? No. Seriously, no. Serious thing. I mean, social media. I mean, the thing about social media is, to start out, social media was, as you said, when you were saying earlier about that, the prize sometimes is just being recognized. There is that whole feedback loop about the difference between. I went to Fleetwood Mac in Bakersfield a few weeks ago. Brilliant concert. If you didn't see it here at the Forum, it was an amazing show. Pictures at a concert years ago was a picture of me taking a picture of the band on stage. Now it's me it's completely reversed, where it's, can you see me in the picture? It looks like think I'm on stage with the band, but I'm not really there. So we are in the me moment right now. So how does, in that me moment, is social media the end game, or is social media just the stepping stone?
I think it can be both. I mean, I think it's a necessity. I mean, I don't know if you can really draw a direct line to ROI in social media, but you need to be there. If you're just not talking to your consumer, your competitor is. So they're probably talking about you without you. So you might as well be a part of that conversation.
That's great. Say that again. That's
You know, I think on the sales side, I mean, there's some really cool things in social media regarding right back to spending. Like, I mean, I follow my favorite beauty brands on Instagram, and they have integrations now where I can just hashtag cart on the picture and I just bought the product. So to me, that's really cool for me to actually then leave Instagram, log into that site, go find the product, put it in my cart and do the checkout. That would have been another 45 minutes and I probably would have given up on wanting that nail polish by then, but I just bought it within like 10 seconds. Right, I wasn't even shopping. I just happened to be scrolling my feed and it was in the feed. I think other than that, I still think social media is really valuable in doing your customer service, listening to them on what types of products you should be, where you should be. I think just beyond selling to them. I mean, no one really wants to log into their Facebook and see a message saying like, hey, buy this. It's really more about engaging and having a prolonged relationship with your consumer.
In the back there, and then we'll do the one right in front of you. Yes. Hi.
What are your recommendations for social media listening platforms?
Well, you can hire me.
That was perfect. Yeah. That was good.
Can't you DIY it, or do you really, it's so complicated that you really need you to interpret?
Yeah.
Oh, you definitely need her to interpret.
Yeah,
You
I
can't
mean,
do it, right?
it depends on what you're trying to do. So, like, one of the benefits of having people talk in public and sort of making that data available for free is that you can learn a lot, as you said, about your customers, and so, or people in general. And so, a lot of basic listening is very easy. So a lot of times advertisers are surprised by that. So Twitter, Facebook, other sites make a lot of their data available through what's called an API that you can attach to and sort of collect data pretty easily. And so I would say, to the extent that you have a specific question, you can do stuff and you have access to a data scientist or a data science team. You can build custom solutions. Other than that, I think a lot of the solutions that exist today in their current form are too basic. I mean, I don't. And that's in part because, for the most part, I'm an academic and I don't have to use them. So I develop things that are better, that go deeper,
You two should talk afterwards.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah.
We're down to our last moment. I got time for one quick question, and I'm going to end it with a story because it's all about me. Raise it because I know you. Right. The me generation was created for me. Go ahead.
Hi, Ted. When we're talking about advertising and social, you place an ad, you get social engagement, you review the analytics, and then you adjust your campaign accordingly. Can you talk about closing that loop and making it a lot faster? Is it normally like a 2-week, a month cycle? How do we get it down to almost real time?
I could try. So so there's somebody I used to work with. I partnered with their company. It's now called Spreadfast. I don't know if you've heard of them, but this is one of those measurement companies. So there's a guy there, Chris Kearns, who wrote a book called Trendology. And the idea behind it is that you can respond in real time. And I don't think that this is sort of always possible, but at least that book kind of sets the stage for sort of what advertisers should be thinking about if they want to respond in real time. So because you can now listen to what people are thinking and saying in real time response to your advertisement, there's the opportunity to adjust, right? So, famous examples are that Oreo campaign when the lights at the Super Bowl went out, right? So those opportunities sometimes, serendipity happens and you can do it. But that book, I think, starts the conversation about doing just that.
I think you can start with the answers. I mean, a little unconventional, but Pretty Little Liars right now, they're running a campaign where they're asking their social audience to dictate what their next advertising campaign will be, like what the creative will be, where they're going to run it. Like, should it be on buses? Should it be social ads? Should it be Facebook? Which I think is really interesting. And the ads will be branded with Pretty Little campaign to see that's where it came from.
Cool. Quickly, start with you. Well, actually, let's start with you. Twitter handle.
Oh, I'm at Eliz Tesh. ELIZTESCH.
Okay.
It's at social_TV_lab.
Cool.
It's at Laser Focus, spelled like the last name Focus.
Cool.
I did it a few years ago. I was working for AOL,
We like it.
and our CEO of our company used laser focus in every single speech.
No, I'm keeping it simple, just my name, JGOTTHEI.
Cool.
That's it.
I'm at Spinal Tap. It's a longer story. But I posted to, after having 4 different ADT techs come to my house and tell me that the alarm system is a mess, but I don't have time to redo it. So I'm gonna patch it back together again. But you really need a new system, but I'm too busy. Goodbye. I posted a picture of the alarm system on Twitter. And about an hour later, I got a call from ADT, and we have a new alarm system being put in on Thursday.
Really?
It works. Talk to you later. Thanks very much, everybody.
Wow.
Wow.